I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education to order. The closed session items on tonight's agenda are conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D, paragraph 1, 2 cases. Magali Kincaid, Benito Juarez Neighborhood Association, neighborhood elections now. San Juan, Juan Iniguez, Carolina Flores, Damaris Canton versus the San Juan Unified School District, complaint for violation of California Voting Rights Act, and in the alternative for violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the California Constitution, Sacramento Superior Court case number 34-2020-002. 86475 and Carolina Flores, neighborhood elections now petitioners versus San Juan Unified School District. Paula Viesquez in her official capacity as board president. Respondents verified petition for writ of mandate pursuant to the First Amendment, the California Constitution, California Public Records Act, and the Welf M. Brown Act, and complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief, Sacramento Superior Court case number 34-2021-8000-CU-WM-GDS. And second, collective bargaining matters, discussion with negotiator David Thigpen, Senior Director, Labor Relations, regarding CSEA Chapter 127, General Operations Support, chauffeurs, Teamsters, Local 150 Transportation, supervisors, teachers, and certificated supervisory units, and regarding non-representative groups, management and confidential units, Government Code Section 54957.6, and 3 personnel matters. Government Code Section 54957, Superintendent's goals for 21-22. We do not have any speaker cards on the closed session for agenda items. We will now move into closed session, and we will return to open session at 6:30.
I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education back to order. Board meetings are being held in person in the boardroom here at the district office, and the public is welcome to attend. Thank you to those of you who have joined us this evening. Alternatively, the meeting may also be viewed on the district's YouTube channel, where it is being live streamed. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted on the district website. At this moment, I invite you to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Paula Viesquez, Board President, and to my right is Dr. Michael McKibben, Board Vice President. To his right is Ms. Zima Creason, Board Clerk, and to her right is Ms. Pam Costa and Mr. Saul Hernandez, Board Members. To my left is Superintendent Kent Kern, and to his left is Board Administrative Assistant Stephanie Cunningham. Before we begin, I'd like to review the 2 methods that are available to offer public comment for tonight's meeting. For those of you who are attending the board meeting in person and would like to offer a public comment on items that are on the agenda, we ask that you please complete a speaker card that is available, I believe, over in this corner today, opposite the door, correct? And you will be called on at the appropriate time during the agenda. The second option is to submit a public comment online using the comment form located on the district website at www.sanjuan.edu/boardmeeting. If you wish to submit a public comment on more than one agenda item, please submit a separate form for each item on which you are commenting. Comments received by 6 p.m. today have already been shared with all board members. Comments received after 6 p.m. tonight, including those submitted during the meeting, may be read during the meeting depending on time restrictions. Comments may only be submitted on an agenda item up until the time that the agenda item has been discussed. And please note that all comments are subject to a 2-minute limit or approximately 1,500 characters. With that, we will now move to the business of our meeting. We are at item D, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes for July 27th? It's been moved by Ms. Creason, seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are now at item E, E1, staff reports. Dr. Calvin.
Good evening, President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Staff was recently notified by the International Rescue Committee and several other resettlement agencies that we should anticipate the arrival of 1,700 to 2,000 special immigrant visa refugees from Afghanistan to the Sacramento region between now and November 30th. IRC reported that the majority of the families arriving have at least several children, and that there's a strong desire by many to relocate in areas near their family and friends who have already settled. Since many families live in the Art and Arcade area and have expressed a desire to remain in San Juan, where we have a variety of services and programs to support the newest members of our community, this could have a significant impact on our numbers. During our weekly meetings with the resettlement agencies, it has been made clear that the number of refugees, the timeline for their arrival, and the locations in which they may settle change constantly. So it is impossible at this point to determine exactly how many students we can anticipate. The only thing that we know for certain is that new students will arrive within the next several weeks. Staff is preparing to welcome and serve students in a variety of ways, which includes the addition of 11 new bilingual instructional aid positions, 4 new school community resource assistants, and 1 new translator. Our focus was on finding staff who were fluent in Farsi, Dari, and Pashto. Additional supports include the creation of professional learning and training modules related to the support of refugee and newcomer students, collaboration with the enrollment team to ensure the availability of primary language support when families arrive to enroll their students, the creation of a pop-up enrollment center at Greer to help alleviate the transportation challenges that many of our families face when trying to enroll at San Juan Central, videos in the students' home language that outline many of the services provided in San Juan, the distribution of backpacks and school supplies to our students when they register, and the distribution of student bus passes. As stated earlier, we have no clear arrival date, and the projected numbers fluctuate constantly, but we are prepared and ready to support our students once they arrive. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Calvin, for the staff report. Do any of my colleagues have questions at this time? Ms. Creason.
Thank you for that report. That's big news, new neighbors. That's cool. There's only so much as a school district we can do, which is a lot in the way of support. So I'm just wondering, and I'm sure this has to be the case, the state, county, federal government, others are going to be supporting our new community members as well. It's not all going to fall on SJUSD. Are we supported to support them better? Can you talk just a little bit about the interagency aspect of welcoming our
What I
new?
know about the resettlement agencies is that they provide a number of services for them prior to our arrival, which includes health services. We don't really have to worry too much about vaccinations and things of that nature because that'll be taken care of. I know that the agencies are working on housing, which is a challenge, particularly in this market. And also we hook them up, and other agencies do as well, with agencies that provide support in terms of food and other services. So we're not in this alone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Checking to see if there's any additional comments or questions at this time. Thank you, Dr. Calvin, for the report. I've also been able to join some of the organizing calls, and in addition to a robust representation from the San Juan community and the schools community, it does include state partners, including the Department of Public Health, Department of Social Services, our local congressional delegation, and as well as our state legislators as well. So there's at least a broad level of awareness, but I do appreciate how much, we're going to be the ones to feel this the most, or at least pretty significantly. And so I really appreciate and want to thank the team for being ready to take it on amidst everything else that we are taking on. So thank you for the report.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we are at item E2 through E4. I want to make sure I don't see at this time any speaker cards for board appointed district committees, employee organizations, or other district committees at this time. Seeing none. We are at item E5, and there are no closed session actions to report. So that brings us to item F, visitor comments. I do have, it looks like 3 visitor comments. So if you are interested in providing visitor comments but have not yet signed up, please at this time go visit the back table over there. Ms. Rye is raising her hand, and we will get you signed up and call on you at the appropriate time. I'd like to remind the public that comments are limited to 2 minutes, and the clock on the screen will count down the time up that way. Under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda, so we're not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to any individual comments. The superintendent can refer items to staff, who will follow up with you. We will get started with Marina Gable, and I'll also be announcing who's next in line, just so you can be prepared and at the ready. So we'll start with Marina Gable, and we will follow that up with Katie Reed. Ms. Gable, please begin when you're ready.
Hello. Hi. A little unprepared tonight. I am no longer a San Juan parent, proud to say. I have removed my son from child abuse as I see it. Sorry. And I am really sad that we can't call CPS on the school board when you're using children as political stepping stones and abusing them. I filed the complaints. I went through the right process. It's unfortunate we're in the state of California because they said what happened to my son was okay and that the teacher did nothing wrong and that it was okay to make him feel bad about himself or somebody who didn't look like him. It's sad that the parents don't have the power that they should have. I mean, we basically put you where you are, and you said it's okay for this stuff to be taught in our schools. And you all know what's happening. You all know how up and down California, people are being recalled from school boards because of what's happening to our kids. And more parents are speaking up, and I wish a lot more would, because it is sad. I am a mandated reporter, but I can't call CPS on you, but we can recall you. So we are recalling you. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that it's recall San Juan Unified BOE.org. You can print out your own recalls and you can mail them into our PO box. So please take advantage of this if you want things to change for your children. Thank you.
Next up, we have Katie Reed, followed by William Brooks. Ms. Reed, please begin when you're ready.
Good evening, President Viasquez, trustees, and Mr. Kern. My name is Katie Reed, Secretary of the Board of the San Juan Parents Association. I've drugged my youngest 2 children here tonight on the second to the last day of their summer vacation, and notably under protest, because it is important to us that we express your thanks for your support in transitioning our school district to a 7-member board elected by smaller trustee districts. Our goal as an association is to help each and every parent in our district find their voice, empower them to speak their opinion, and provide a vehicle when they feel their voices are being silenced. I would encourage you for that reason to consider, again, our request that Zoom comments be allowed to encourage the participation of as many parents as possible. Parents who tonight are at back to school nights, soccer practices, PTA meetings, and second jobs, and parents who may be less comfortable bringing small children here tonight, or larger children who may be able to more strongly resist. I would thank you for that, and I know my children would thank you for that.
Thank you. Next up, we have William Brooks, followed by Jessica Silva. Mr. Brooks, please begin when you are ready.
Hello, William Brooks. My family and neighbours are very concerned that a known carcinogen is being sprayed on San Juan playing fields. Of photos of postings from a couple of schools. In 2014, a groundsman from Benicia Unified School District contracted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer from spraying this same chemical on their fields. Another court recently awarded 125,000 groundsmen and farmers $10.9 billion for their cancer caused by the same chemical. The court obtained internal emails showed that Monsanto falsified the safety research and executives were aware of the dangerous toxicity of this product. As a result, they've now decided to discontinue its residential use. So isn't it time we stop spraying these carcinogenic chemicals around our children? And my solution is to contact Irvine Unified School District, the city of Irvine, and many other schools that have adopted an organic first landscaping policy, or contact non-toxic communities. They've been doing this in Irvine since 2018. They're finding it cheaper and healthier for the kids. That's my comment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jessica Silva, followed by Janet Rodriguez.
So I'm going to read my email that I sent, and hopefully you guys have, heard about this. But as quoted, I'm writing you in regards to my concerns and frustrations regarding the upcoming 2021-2022 school year. I am a parent to 3 children, 2 of which are not able to get vaccinated. And I feel that I am forced to send them back because of the education options you guys are giving our children. Independent studies, nowhere near distance learning. The options, the credits, the lectures, it's nowhere near it. I've been to both orientations, middle school, high school. And they themselves, they tell us when we ask these questions pertaining to distance learning, is it anything like it? Will my student have actions to speak with other students to, like we do in schoolwork? No, they will not. Unfortunately, we will not have the ability to have your student do that. They will have a master teacher once a week. That is not the same as daily interactions with a teacher, giving lecture. They will not have someone who's supporting them and helping them. I understand that people want to return to normalcy. I'm 100% on board on that. But the thing is, jobs are returning in smaller phases. I myself have still the option to stay home. I can return to work if I want to a designated area. Why are we returning to full capacity? How is that an option for students who can't be vaccinated? I have a 6th grader. She's 11 years old. She cannot go. But I feel like I have to send her, or else her academic education is going to be lesser than. I really hope that you guys really push forward to this. I know it's legislation as well, but you guys have to really push forward this. I appreciate your time.
Next up, we have Julian Rodriguez, followed by Lori Corder.
My name is Janet Rodriguez, and I'm here on behalf of myself, my family, representing Jessica Lee, Jessica Jaimes, Raquel Strand, Cynthia Price, Sandy Silva, and all those children age 11 and under who are not able to be vaccinated, all medically compromised high-risk families as myself and those who are not here today and I'm representing.
I'm here to begin with many concerns regarding the limited learning opportunities for our students, the reopening of schools at full capacity, especially for unvaccinated middle school students and elementary students as well. We strongly feel that us high-risk families are being discriminated and not being considered when it comes to the same learning opportunities as those attending in school. We are very familiar with El Sereno and what the school has to offer, and it does not support our students as traditional school would. I have had many meetings along with the families that I previously mentioned with both school sites, our home schools and El Sereno School, and they have both voiced the differences between the school curriculums and what they have to offer for our students. I've been told that the placement of my student, if I were to take and go into independent study, will not be saved. So I'm being kicked out of my home school with a school that's not equivalent as in-person learning. I've heard it time and time again from different staff members at both schools. My child is a 4.0 student who thrived in distance learning and demonstrated that distance learning is a successful school option for instruction. It brings me to my next concern as to why, and I'm asking you all, why is distance learning not being offered? I keep hearing the mention of legislative, but where is the district standing up for us families who are medically compromised? Where is the school district standing up for our kids who are not vaccinated? Why are we not protecting our children and rushing them and putting them in full capacity, jeopardizing our children or jeopardizing their academic success? I ask that you please reconsider distance learning.
Thank you. Next up, we have, and I briefly misspoke just a moment ago. Next up, we have Julian Rodriguez, followed by Lori Corder. Julian, please begin when you're ready.
My name is Julian Rodriguez. I am a 4.0 student at Casa High School, and I'm here today to ask you board members to reconsider distance learning for us high-risk families. I am an example, along with my few friends, that distance learning is truly works and is a good learning environment as in school learning. I care deeply about my education and want the same learning opportunities as those attending in person and which independent study does not offer. Please reconsider distance learning and keep our families and communities safe. Thank you.
Finally, we have Lori Corder. This is our last listed public comment for our general visitor comment. So if you're here and wish to comment at this time, please be sure to go visit the back corner there and submit a comment card. Ms. Corder, please begin when you're ready.
I don't know where to begin. I've lived in this district for 30 years. Both my children have gone. I've served on boards with Mr. Sal Hernandez. There's even been a time when things were taken out of a storage locker and Mr. Hernandez had some of it in his car, which I'm not sure how everything turned out, but we need to speak about a few things. I also know of a body shop that was received questionable bid information. They were asked if they would like to bid on painting their school buses, was sent the information, and then also proceeded to give the information how to secure the contract. The next thing I'd like to speak on is on August 1st, 2019, Barrett was going to be remodeled. A handful of flyers were distributed to the community regarding this project. There is also very much mitigation problems with the transportation and the things that you're doing with the facilities that have not been addressed, especially regarding your Zoom meetings with your facilities people. Your facilities people have also, there was a December meeting on Zoom. The meeting on your website is altered. It's not portraying exactly the meeting. Many people were not allowed onto the meeting. You had to have a code to get onto the meeting. Currently, the project that's over there, you're supposed to be mitigating the problems that are going on for the households that are nearby. They're not doing that. My house is full of dust. There's dust all over my backyard. My pool is receiving algae. I can't keep it clean. And if you're going to tell me that they didn't know what was going on because I didn't pick up the phone and call them, they're making their own dust storm. The wind blows in the direction towards my house. I have no way to avoid it. There's several other problems that need to be addressed. First of all, your facilities department, and in dealing with this, they have pretty much rubber stamped the CEQA.
That's the balance of your 2 minutes. That is our final visitor comments. We do have written comments that have been submitted after 6 p.m. Is there any objection to us having those read? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Rye, will you please read the public comments that have been submitted after 6 p.m.?
Check. Certainly. We have 2 written comments for general comment. The first is from Adam Dondro, who writes, until vaccinations are available for youth, all our children remain at high risk. I believe that my daughter will benefit from returning to school full time, but to keep her and our community safe, we need to consider all reasonable mitigations. I believe there are 2 things the board should consider that could keep our children safer. Outdoor masking. While guidance hasn't yet gotten there, San Juan could lead. We are seeing cases of kids in sports and other close contact catching COVID. Children do not distance when playing, and it is not fair to say those who choose to distance can. We need to make these decisions, not them. More importantly, unvaccinated teachers and staff are the single biggest risk to bring COVID into a school setting and spread it. Across the country, we are seeing leaders requiring their staff to be vaccinated or tested. There is no other change you could adopt that will do more to protect our students and keep our classrooms open. Unvaccinated individuals are consistently shown to be the source of the spread. Without testing unvaccinated staff, they put the entire school at risk. By testing them frequently, you will catch cases before they can create an outbreak. Ignoring our current reality is not how to get back to normal. While those who don't believe in vaccines and science may be louder, we have an obligation to rise above and do what is truly in the best interest of our children. Vaccinations and testing are how we keep our children safe, and in school, they are how we get back to normal. Our next general comment is from Juanita Martinez, who writes, I'm writing to ask the board to consider additional measures to protect our children as school starts. The Delta variant is not the COVID we knew last year. Nationwide, 15% of all cases are children. In Florida, where schools have opened, they're already seeing 4 times the number of cases, and in some districts over 10 times. As more and more entities are mandating vaccines or mandating testing of the unvaccinated, I ask the board to do the same to protect our children and keep our schools open. Vaccinations are the only way we will stop the virus. And the only way to protect our students from those unvaccinated is to test them. I know that opponents of these measures are angry, loud, and sometimes threatening, but the reality is that we all want the same thing. We want our kids back in school full-time safely. And the only way to do that without having outbreaks that put our children at risk and close classrooms is to put measures like these and masking in place and enforce them. And that's all we have for general comment at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment at this time, we will move to item G, our consent calendar. We do not have any speaker cards or written comments on this item. Do any board members wish to remove items from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve items G1 through G10? It's been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are now at our first business item, item I1, expanded learning opportunities. Ms. Bassanelli.
Wait till we get the slide deck up. Great. Good evening, President Villasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Tonight, we're excited to present to you an update related to our Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan that was approved by the Board of Education this past May of 2020. Presenting with me tonight is Assistant Superintendent Kristen Schnepp and Mariloma Principal Cleet Purinton. Last spring, the state allocated approximately $27 million to San Juan Unified School District and expanded learning opportunity funds through Assembly Bill 86 to provide supplemental instruction and support for targeted students. The approved plan we presented to you in May, we wove together the ELO funds with the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds to support actions connected to the 7 strategies that you see on the screen. As a reminder, at least 85% of the ELO funds must go towards in-person services, with 10% of the funds going towards paraprofessionals. Additionally, actions must be directed towards the targeted student populations that you see in the green on the right of the screen. Within the ELO plan, system level and site level actions were identified for implementation to support and build upon student learning. As you may recall, the site level actions in the ELO plan were high level and did not include much detail. This was intentional, as we wanted to empower sites to utilize local control to identify strategies and actions that best meet the needs of their student population. ELO actions planned for site level identification and implementation include expanding certificated and classified staff, providing before, during, and after school programs to address academic and social emotional needs, expanding and building partnerships between school and community to increase services and supports for students, and providing staff professional development. To support and empower schools and their local control, processes and parameters were co-created with our Teachers Association leadership. These parameters included the identification of targeted student groups and focus areas through needs assessment, the expectation for collaboration in gathering input and developing plans, and the implementation of continuous improvement practices, which include the identification of success indicators and progress monitoring. To help provide the board with detail about what this looks like in action, I would like to invite Principal Clete Purinton to the podium to share Mira Loma's ELO story.
Thank you, Melissa, and good evening, board. Superintendent Kern. As you can see from the diagrams here, we're just sharing a little bit about Mira Loma here. The enrollment hasn't changed significantly in the last number of years, but our demographics have. You can see from the diagram that our Hispanic or Latino population has increased by roughly 4%. Our white population has decreased by roughly 5%, and our students of 2 or more races has increased by about 4%. There we go. When you break it down by subgroup, our socioeconomic disadvantaged students has increased by about 6%. Our English learners has more than doubled, and our foster youth and homeless students have increased as well. So over the last 6 years, working at Mira Loma as a vice principal, and now this year as a principal, we've tried to address a couple things: attendance and academic improvement with a part-time counselor. And in 2016-17, our attendance rate was pretty poor. It was about 88%, and we had a very high truancy rate. So Mira Loma is known for a lot of academic achievement, but when you look at those numbers, there was a lot of work to be done to improve our attendance. Our part-time counselor began running reports weekly, reaching out to families, setting up meetings and conferences. And then if there was not an initial improvement, setting up a habitual truancy conference where we really tried to learn the story of our students and find out what is it that they're struggling with. What is it, what are the barriers for them coming to school and having success? And through that work, we identified themes such as obviously transportation being an issue. So providing transportation assistance, providing link to medical services, closed closet connections, tutoring, and internet assistance. We also started to realize that we needed to do more in terms of wraparound services with our students. In that work, we partnered with World Relief Sacramento, because a lot of our English learners are refugee students that, not only do the students are learning the culture here and how education works, but the families are probably at more of a disadvantage than the students. And they don't know how to support their students and their success. So that connection has been powerful. The areas that we've seen improvement with that was obviously our attendance, because that was our focus. So our attendance rate in 2019-20 was 94%, so it increased by 6. We were able to establish other partnerships on our campus, like Improve Your Tomorrow. The work of EOS has been really huge. where many of our students, were struggling, but with the support of our staff and encouragement, and many of them have taken an IB class or an AP class or been challenged to take more rigor. We've definitely made more connections with our families. And I think IYT has been instrumental in that, in kind of becoming like a bridge for us, but also a partnership so that when we do have challenges on our campus, can't use this analogy at one of our meetings recently where he said, rather than sitting face to face, standing shoulder to shoulder. And when I heard him say that, I thought of what IYT has become for our campus. And so making those connections for our students has really been powerful in terms of there's a trust. And so our families feel like we're with them, we're for them. So we know we've made progress, but when you see areas of continued challenge, you don't see the data screaming at us that kids are learning at high rates. The students that we're trying to support and intervene are still struggling academically. We know that when we started this work that it was going to take time, but we've never seen the data really reflect that a lot of our students are making strides the way we want to. We've also identified that the work that we've done has been very surface level. We've made connections, we've supported students, we've found wraparound services, but many of our students struggle with depression, anxiety, trauma, and we're not hitting on those things. And we're reaching out and trying to provide those. But a lot of times there's insurance, there's other things that are barriers for them to actually get that counseling and therapy that they need. And so once we refer those out, we don't really know what happens. And a lot of times we're not aware of the progress that those students are making, even if they are making those connections to therapy and counseling. We've also had some reductions in the services that we've used outside of our school in the recent years, which has been more challenging in trying to get students connected to that. So when we found out about the ELO grant last spring, we quickly presented this to our staff. And I asked the staff to, in each of those 7 areas that Melissa shared on slide 7, to brainstorm ideas and ways that we can support our students coming back to full in-person learning this year. We also asked our teachers, to survey our students to gather information from students. What do students think they're going to need to have support and success when they come back? And counselors and administration working together over the last number of years on this intervention work, the main theme for us was kids need a lot more support and help than we're able to provide. So those things really, mental health was the most glaring thing that came out of all of that work and the feedback that we got from our staff and students. So with that information, I reached out to a colleague who works in the Rockland School District because they were using an organization called Wellness Together last year, supporting students when they returned to in-person learning. And they found that not only was it successful in helping students by providing counseling and therapy, they were providing professional development for their teachers around trauma-informed practices. And that was one of the most powerful things they felt like they gained from that, was really having those strategies school-wide so that they could be, providing that as a school and as a district. So I reached out to Wellness Together and we began talking about how that could be a part of our plan, and included our counselors. And as we met and talked about it, it became like we were really excited about the opportunity to bring a mental health therapist on our campus 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, where they become an extension of our staff. And so they're going to have a caseload of up to 25 students. They can do individual counseling, group counseling. They even have 3 family sessions that they can provide. And those counseling sessions go from anywhere from 10 to 13 weeks. They're tracking the data that they're collecting for us, and they provide that twice a year, January and in June. So that is one step that we're taking with the ELO grant. The other step that we're going to take is we are increasing our part-time counselor to full-time. And although that might not seem like a big step, to me, it's the biggest step that we're taking, because what we've found is that our intervention work has kind of fallen short. We haven't had the personnel to really do it in an effective manner where we're consistently providing the resources and support that our students need. So this counselor is free. They don't have a caseload of their own where they have students that they're scheduling. And this counselor is going to be our point person for what we're calling a learning support team. I think 4 years ago, our district spent a lot of time on training for learning support teams around intervention work. And we love the training, and then we came back and we're never fully able to put that into practice. And one of the things I'm really excited about too is not only is this counselor there to provide the social emotional support for students, but they're going to be kind of that point person to also promote the equity work that we do as far as academic, really connecting them to our supports and services that we have. IYT, we have early academic outreach program. This is a more recent partnership that we have. We had 100 students this last summer that were in a leadership program through this UC Davis program. And they're students similar to like AVID, where you identify at a young age that they have potential, but they would be first generation college students and they need a little bit of extra support and encouragement. And so we're excited about that partnership. And we've been doing restorative practices for a number of years. So having someone that's really focused on that work and supporting our teachers in that, and then continuing with our attendance work. So those are the things that we're looking forward to doing. And this opportunity of the ELO grant has allowed us to add more support and resources for our students and families. We're also increasing in staffing. We had the full-time FTE. So integrated math 1 and physics, we increased because we want to roll out our co-teaching this year. All science classes and math are co-taught with SPED, special education. And we really want to have a positive rollout with that. So it allows us to reduce some of those class sizes and make it more manageable as we roll that out. Japanese 1, we have 3 years of students now that are on the new graduation requirements, and all of them are required to take 2 years of language. So surprising, I was anticipating adding a section of Spanish or French, but there was a lot of signups for Japanese. So we're able to add a section of that, and credit recovery for students that are trying to recover credits from the last year and a half. And I'm going to turn it over to Krista now.
Thank you, Clete. So we showed you through Mariloma's lens how they went through the process of identifying their specific needs based on their data, getting input from their staff, from their families, and then also how they created a plan that met both the academic and the social emotional needs. And all of our high schools engaged in a similar process. And so on slide 13, you see some of the different areas that the sites at the different high schools selected for the academics. And math was a key area that all sites did receive FTE. And sites chose to either lower class sizes or do a co-teaching model. And so the sites were able to decide based on their staff input what would be the best model for them. They also chose many sites to include and increase science classes based on our new NGSS pathway. And so this is giving more students an opportunity to more science classes. Many of our sites chose English language arts interventions. So some chose smaller, like 6-week semester sessions, quarter sessions for some intensive reading intervention to support, as well as writing labs, so that students who are struggling with writing conventions and with reading are going to able to get more support. Credit recovery, both seat-based and Apex, was one of the options that sites chose. And then some sites wanted to increase visual and performing arts to increase the elective choices for students as well. And then on the social emotional side, sites selected between social workers, counselors, mental health therapists, bilingual instructional assistants, community intervention specialists, a wide variety of offerings based on their own needs assessments that they did and went through with their sites. As we go through this year with our high school leaders, our plan is really a four-step approach, and it's going to be to continue to do surveys. We want to survey students and see how they are meeting and making progress through the year. We're going to be doing listening sessions with families and students. We'll analyze data, both qualitative and quantitative. And then we'll also be using the cycle of inquiry to really use the information that we receive from our families and from our staff, and then adjust as needed based on our actions. So that's kind of a snapshot of how the high schools will be using the ELO grant funds. And at this time, I am available, as well as Mr. Purinton, to answer any questions that you may have regarding the secondary level. And Ms. Bassanelli was also available to answer questions as well.
Thanks to the team for the presentation. I'll now turn it to my colleagues for any questions or comments at this time. Ms. Costa.
Thank you very much. I really like the idea that this was not a one-size-fits-all design and that local site control was utilized throughout. And I appreciate the fact that there's going to be ongoing monitoring, so we'll get feedback about success stories and things that people decide they need to modify as they go through the process. One of the things I would really appreciate is just an executive summary of what the other sites are doing, so that it does not, I don't want to read everybody's plan, but a bulleted list of the things that each individual site has selected would be helpful for me.
We can provide that.
Thank you.
Ms. Creason.
Thanks for that. And the last slide was my main question that I was going to ask was, is there going to be room? Because I know that just all the hoops you had to jump through to build the plan and make it happen and build in the room for autonomy to meet the individual needs of the schools. That was the whole thing. So I was really wondering, is there going to be room for, I don't want to say course corrections, but adjustments as we learn, because it's all new, right? So, and not look at that as a failure. It's okay, we're rolling this out. Maybe if we tweak this, that'll be better. But it sounds like there is room to do that throughout the year. We don't have to wait till the end of the year and do one big assessment and have it last year. So that's great.
Ms. Creason, let me speak to that too a little bit. I think what we're really looking at is changes possibly during the course of the year, but it's likely that this is the ultimate example of local control. And there may be two schools that had very similar needs, but did things a little differently. And that's where I think even over the course of the year in division meetings, you're going to have an opportunity to say, this is what we're doing that's working really well. This is what isn't. One of the really exciting things and challenging things related to this is we're using a significant amount of one-time funds to provide another level of support that historically we haven't. And I think we've talked in the end, we're going to learn some things that we want to continue. So how over the next 2 to 3 years, as Mrs. Bassanelli kind of built that out over 3 years, is what do we want to look at? What are we learning along the way that we're going to keep? And what are the available funds, whether that's or supplemental dollars district-wide through the LCAP, whether we're getting concentration dollars again by that point in time, because I know that we're going to provide some services through this that we absolutely have to continue. The reason I wanted this presented tonight was because Kristen and I showed up at Mariloma this summer and really hearing Cleat's excitement over the work that they were going to do specific and how they had already seen some growth in those areas. I think it is, as Ms. Costa said, so much better than a top-down approach. They know what they need at their school. Our schools are so different across the course of this district. So we're excited to kind of share throughout the course of the year with the board on this, and we'll provide our victories as well as the areas where we're struggling as well.
That's awesome. And then my next question, it's really 2 buckets, and it's how are we empowering self-help and just raising awareness of all this great stuff. So there's the bucket of, I appreciated the comment about, there's still issues to address with our students at Mariloma, but, we are introducing them to the supports that we have, housing supports and transportation supports and addressing food insecurity. So I guess my question is 2 things, the stuff that we've already been doing and all the new stuff. How are we making students and parents aware of both of those things? So it's not, we remove the need to be identified, that folks can engage in self-help.
Thank you for that question. I'm thinking about the answer right now as you ask that, because we haven't put this out to families yet in terms of the Wellness Together partnership, or even increasing the counseling. And really for us right now, it's going to be kind of a approach of we're not sure what we're going to get. We've been, last spring, the kids came back and about 40 to 50% of our students came back. And it was not the same as what we're going to see starting on Thursday. It might take 5 to 6 weeks to really gather what our kids are needing most. We're certainly going to reach out with these and let people know of what we're offering in terms of support. But to know how this is going to play out and provide the intervention for students, it's kind of remains to be seen. I mean, our attendance and behavior data that we typically looked at and would use to kind of identify who we needed to support the most isn't really there. We don't have behavior data from last year. We have attendance data that doesn't match what it's going to look like this year with kids coming back in person. So it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, and us gathering feedback from our staff and students about what's going on and how we can support them. But certainly we don't want to provide a resource that would embarrass students or put them in a position where they would look like they don't fit the mold. Or that part of the question I was trying to hear what you meant by that as far as.
I'm not sure which part of the question you're referring to, but I'll
say something about the services, like when you talk about transportation or clothing or anything like that.
Just promoting them. How are you raising awareness so folks know that they exist? That's it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I think I misunderstood you on that, but
I probably overcomplicated how I asked the question. So I apologize for that.
No problem.
For example, mental, and my colleagues on the dais have heard me say this a million times, that I don't want kids to have to wait to be identified to receive services, so, and I get it. A lot of this is so new, so I don't necessarily need to tell me exactly what you're going to do. It hasn't even been the first day of school yet. But, we're going to have this new professional staff. There's going to be counselors. There's going to be people. What are we going to do to raise awareness so all the kids know and their families know, if I need help, this is where I go. I've used the example, and I have permission to share the story of my son who, went to Arden. They had a counselor that he absolutely adored there. And whenever his friends were struggling, he would literally march them down to see Miss King because he knew that's where you go and get help. And I think that, just empowering them to take that step. So that's just what I'm getting at.
Well, and one of the things that we focused on already is just communicating with our staff, the referral process, because what we don't want to have happen is it's inconsistent in how we do it. We want to have good communication with our regular counselors that have these students assigned to them by Alpha. We want to have communication with our intervention counselor and then identifying that step to tier 3 support. We've tried different things, and one aspect of it is students get comfortable with one person, and that's the person they want to go to because they have a relationship there. But just so far in our work, I mean, we've had teachers back for 2 days. That's been our focus, is how we're going to do this so that it's a systemic thing. Teachers know the process when they identify a student that's in need. And that next step is going to be how we communicate this out to families and reach out to them about what resources we are providing.
And I won't just pick on Mariloma. So I'm just thinking about this as a system-wide, know what I'm getting at, is I just don't want the kids to wait to be identified. So how are we putting it out there? So really, I'm not picking at you.
It didn't feel, I think it's actually a really good question. And I think, one of the things that I'll speak for at a school site level is there's probably a lot of even anxiety over just returning and coming back for the first time. And so as a site principal, I would just be so worried on my first day about, okay, is everything in order to have this go smoothly?
Mhm.
All the other issues we're dealing with. But Clete, I think there's a really good point brought up, and our folks that oversee schools as well. We've got to make sure that people know the resources are there, whether it's around, support for what does it look like for transportation? What does it look like for food insecurities? What does it look like if you're struggling social, emotionally? Because some of the students will never show the signs that we need to see, but they may be willing to reach out to somebody if they know they're there. So it's a great point to bring up, and it just encourages us to reach out to all our site administrators and say, how are you doing this? And then how can we as a district support you to make sure that we can help you in those efforts as well?
Thank you. I am really excited, and it's going to be exciting to see my little one go through that process and see, how we're already seeing the fruits of all the work in the planning that has gone. I mean, he just had, what was it? Orientation day. And we're already seeing some of this work starting to play out for the kids and from his friends. And so I'm very thankful for everything that went into rolling all this out.
Dr. McKibben.
Talking about the counselor that does not have a caseload, as well as one of the things that we found over the last few years is there were more students in tier 2 and tier 3 than most of the predictions and most of our capabilities. Do you see this counselor without a portfolio working primarily with people at tier 2 or tier 3 level, or referring those people to those kinds of levels? Dr. Calvin just a few minutes ago talked about a group of refugees. You may remember the last time we had this, we were actually, I think, the third largest in the country in terms of receiving refugees. Do you see this counselor maybe taking on some of those issues as they come up, kind of looking to see what are the various kinds of things that the role this person may take, and also what are the adequacies of the services going to those students that fall into tier 2 and tier 3 related to mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we want to take this step as a school. We've recognized that we really do need to provide counseling therapy for many of our kids. 25 sounds like a small number at a time, but those students are there for a 10-week session. And hopefully through that process, they're making strides, they're growing, and they no longer need that weekly counseling session. And we're going to be adding students to that as well. I definitely think there's a need in terms of our English learner, what Dr. Calvin shared earlier. The languages that she shared that we're going to need support are the languages that we need support already at our site: Farsi, Dari, Pashto. And many of those students have come from environments where, as a refugee, they're in survival mode. And so when they come here, there's a lot of need of support, a lot of, PTSD that they're dealing with, those kind of things. So when I talk about trauma, it really does fit that student group that we could potentially be getting more of. So absolutely.
Thanks to the team for the presentation, and thank you as well, Principal Purinton. I know it's a really quiet time right now at your school site, and there's absolutely nothing else going on. So no, I really do appreciate your time 2 days before the official school starts here with us, and also just being willing to display the work that you're doing and speak to it. It really helps us kind of add some context to otherwise a bunch of acronyms that we talk about a lot, with no disrespect to the team or the state of California, but acronyms get really boring. And so it really does help. And I had a few questions kind of along the same lines of just what are our kind of checkpoints and moments to pivot, if any, but mostly geared towards, on this last slide, we have this analyzing data piece. And I just want to make sure that that's not just or exclusively, or perhaps at all, the district doing the analyzing data, but instead our site leaders being supported to do that so that they can then pivot as needed at the ground level. So I was just wondering if you could speak to a little bit about that process and how it's kind of, I'm assuming, a shared responsibility between the district and our site leaders, but feel free to enlighten me in any way.
I'm very excited about this portion of the actions because, as Superintendent Kern said, one of the things we want to do is really highlight and showcase the things that are going well. So throughout our division meetings, we will be looking at the actions. We also hired ELO coordinators. So for the secondary and the elementary, we have somebody that's going to also be able to help us as we're rolling out some of these actions. So it'll be nice to have teammates help me as we're moving forward with the work that we're doing. And so one of the things that we're going to start with the division is sharing what our actions are. I think think being able to come together and talk about, based on our needs assessment, what each of our sites really needed. And then we as team members need to decide what are we going to be monitoring. So for Mira Loma, it's going to look quite different than what, say, Rio Americano is going to be monitoring. So we'll each commit to small cycles where we're collecting data, bringing it back, analyzing it, and then adjusting based on some of the feedback that we're getting. One of the things we're also committing to doing is I want to go out to the high schools, and with the principal, I want to talk to students. So we're going to try to select the same students that we would meet with in September, that we would meet again with in December, that we would meet again with at the end of the year, to talk to them. And like, it's a little listening session to find out what's working, what supports are they still needing, and how are they doing with this return to school. So there's going to be, a multi-tiered approach to this, but I'm very excited about really trying to put a lens on these ELO actions, because I think it's really interesting to see how our sites adjust based on what their needs are.
Thank you. I'm excited for that work too. And it excites me that you're excited, that you're all excited about this work. And I also had some questions along the same lines of like, how are students ID'd for services, particularly as we kind of think about our doors opening up. But I also just kind of want to express the same sentiment of, hopefully the expectation, I think, is that it's well known enough to the entire student population that both there's an opportunity to engage them and directly ask them, but also for them to know where to go. So I invite anyone to expand further on that if you'd like to.
I would like to jump in because, at our leadership meeting at Milagro last week, we did some listening sessions with students. And I can tell you across the board, there is a new level of understanding with our students about mental health. They are much more willing to share their story, talk to each other, and reach out. I see a shift in that with our students. It's not something that they are ashamed to talk about in many instances because they are all going through similar journeys right now. So I do see that through communication, students are seeing that this is something where they can help each other. And just like your son was willing to help his friends find those counselors, I think the more we do those listening sessions and we encourage our teachers and our administrators to continue those listening sessions, that will open the door so that students know that it's okay to talk about where they are mentally, and that they can get supports.
Fantastic. And I'm excited to, again, see and hear the rollout. And I also appreciate that we've got some insider information. So I'm sure we'll be updated as things progress. My last question was just, and it might be more of a comment. I might find a question a little bit along the way in this comment, but that's just that I'm excited about the addition of a full-time counselor. And of course, that is in addition to, an existing counseling staff. And the small, it's not even a flag I want to raise, but the thing I just want to note is I want to make sure we don't end up in a situation where, one group has their caseload and there might be an overlapping caseload, and not for lack of intention, but just for pure lack of hours of the day, they don't have an opportunity to connect and talk to each other. Because as you mentioned earlier, the kids just might find comfort with one adult over the other, which is great, right? We want them to go where they can, but I just want to make sure it doesn't result in kind of what, oh, I thought they were getting them versus I thought they were getting them. And then all of a sudden, no one got them.
Yeah. That's an excellent comment that you made there, Paula. And going back even further to what you were saying earlier about communication and Zima, what you were saying, one thing that just came to mind that, we do every year is we go and visit every single classroom and go over all the classroom expectations guidelines. And this is going to be something that we add to that, providing that, academic supports that we do and social emotional learning and mental health supports. But the comment that you made, one of the things that has created the most anxiety for me is that we don't utilize the resources that we have. I mean, I've had nights where I didn't sleep. You're thinking about this has to go well. Like we have to roll this out right. We have to have defined roles. We have to clearly, that's where most of my work has been. not communicating with families yet, but trying to make sure our staff is very clear about what is this process and how we're working together to support our kids. And we've had Wellness Together. The organization was actually out today working with our counselors on building that up, so the nice thing about it too is it is a partnership, and they're not just providing somebody that's going to be on our campus, that it's ongoing work. And, if 4 weeks into this, the counselors that they've given us aren't connecting with kids, we tell them that, and they're going to pivot and work with us to find somebody that will connect. So that's another thing that's really nice about this partnership.
Great. And I think I said that my last comment was my last one and I lied. And that's just that I want to, I'm just curious, Principal Purinton and the team, to comment. This moves super fast. And it certainly sounds like from this presentation that you had a pretty strong awareness of what was available, if the menu, if you will, and how it would or would not work with the team there. I'm just curious if someone could speak a little bit to kind of how we made kind of the options list available to our administrators and how we empowered them to make appropriate decisions for their sites.
As we were building the ELO grant, Ms. Bassinelli, Ms. Townsend, and we put together a list with all the positions that were available as supports, also with the costs, like a general drop-down menu of what each position would cost based on the funding that they received. So they were able to look at that with their leadership teams to help make decisions. Okay, we can afford this, or we can afford a part-time here and then a community intervention specialist here. So by providing those different options with what those salaries were, I think that helped them once they had their needs assessment done and they knew what they were looking for.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anything to add?
Yeah, it goes back to providing the structure with the parameters in addition. So we had a little roadshow where we talked about ELO and what was provided through it. So that was the first piece. And then the supports that Kristen talked about. But in addition, the parameters too, so you kind of know what those bumper guards are when you're rolling out your plan and you're creating. So it was a lot of work, very fast. It put a lot of pressure on our schools to respond quickly, also on our system, because there's been several hundreds that have been hired through our ELO plan. So it's a lot of moving parts happening all at the same time.
Great. Thank you all for the presentation. I want to see if anyone on this side has anything to add before I go to this side. We're good. Okay, Superintendent Kern.
I wanted to thank Clete. He had a full day of PD with his staff today. And so just being here tonight, I appreciate that, Clete, as we're ramping up for the first day of school. Maybe I'll come out and visit you on the first day and offer you probably very little support, but we'll see.
Bring a basketball.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think that's echoed amongst all of us. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon. Thanks to the team for the presentation. We are now at item I2, update on California Department of Public Health and Sacramento County Public Health requirements. Mr. Allen. Sorry, I only laugh because he's pulling double duty tonight. I'm happy to navigate the PowerPoint for you, sir. Thank you for your dual roles as our in-house public health official and our IT for the evening.
Well, and good evening, President Viasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern. Thank you for your patience as we do double duty tonight and tech support. And I'm pleased to be presenting to you and talking about some of our revised guidance as we prepare to re-enter the school year. As you know, this has been a long journey for us, and it's a journey that we continue together. And we have a ways to go, but things are changing as they have done throughout the entire pandemic, and we continue to change with them. So tonight,
I think you counterintuitively have to press down. Maybe not.
Mary, will you advance my slide for me? Just click in there. So tonight I wanted to start by reminding you of our focus areas when we talked about our COVID response last year. As we looked at instructional options, as we looked at our safety options, these are the areas that we really called out as being those important focus areas that we wanted to keep in mind when we considered all those things. And these haven't changed. We continue to keep these as our focus areas. These are pieces that we consider as we move and chart our path forward. But we also now, are making sure that it's very clear that our priority is to ensure we prevent disruptions to learning. So as we move into the 21-22 school year, everything we're putting into place is to make sure that we can avoid disruptions to learning, or if when they do occur, we are responding appropriately, quickly, minimizing those disruptions, and getting students and our staff back into classrooms where they can teach and they can learn. So with that, we have continued to update our district safety plan. We pushed that out last Friday to all of our families, all of our staff members. We've also changed the format of it a little bit this year. You'll remember that last year it was this wonderful PDF document, had some photos in it, it was colorful, it was great. I took all the photos out, there's no photos now. It is all online though, however, and it is all by subject area, so you can just click on the subject area you're really interested in it and looking for, and very quickly, hopefully, identify and look for the information that you're after. So that again was pushed out last week to all of our families and staff. It's online at that web address there. And it is all based on the experts and what the experts are telling us, our health official experts from the California Department of Public Health, from Sacramento County Public Health, as well as Cal OSHA. So those are really the pieces of guidance that have some requirements in them that we absolutely have to follow, as well as some really good recommendations and guidance for K-12 schools that we should look at and should be considering to follow. The other thing I'll mention here is that this is just one part of our planning process. So this is the overall district plan. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. I do want to remind everybody that each of our school sites also has that COVID prevention plan. And that is a piece of planning that's specific to their school site. It really looks at what are those conditions on their school campus that they need to pay attention to, that they might need to put into some specific mitigation. So if they have a very small copy room, do they need to limit the number of people who go into the copy room? That's one of the common examples we saw in the plans last year. Our school sites are just returning, so they're just working on getting those updates done as they go into the new school year. We have lots of new processes and pieces. So that will be a continuous update process that we go through to get those updated and keep those updated as things change. So let me highlight for you some of the changes. And again, some of these are going to be changes. Some of these are going to be things we've talked about a lot for the last 18 months or so. I'm going to start with face coverings, everybody's favorite topic. This one got a little more clarity because we were going down a path where we had some people could wear them indoors, some people could not wear them indoors. And right now, the rule is everybody, if you are indoors, has a mask on. And this is whether you're an adult, whether you're a student, whether you're vaccinated, whether you're not vaccinated. And this is really important because we have a high level of community transmission in Sacramento County right now. And this is one of our primary ways to slow the spread of the virus and make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent that spread. The guidance is a little bit different outdoors than it was last year. And we've adopted that guidance from our health officials. And that says, if you're outside, you should really, really consider wearing a face covering. It's a good idea, but it's not required. So face coverings outdoors, whether you're on school grounds, out in public, are optional. Really, really encouraged. We're going to try and encourage them on school grounds as much as possible, especially when there are large number of students or other individuals around. That's gonna be very important for us. But again, it is optional. It's up to the individual to decide if when they're outdoors, they want to wear that face covering. And the final piece I'll highlight here for you is simply that we are going to continue our progressive response to students who are intentionally not wearing that face covering. And I'll remind you that last year, we really were looking to make sure that we weren't going from 0 to 60 with this and just pulling the kid out of instruction and removing them from their school site immediately. What we want to do is have the opportunity to stress the importance of the face covering. So we do that on step 1 with the student. We make sure the parents are aware. Step 2, we really make sure that we have that direct conversation with parent and student. And then when we get to step 3 and step 4 is when we start talking about really removing from instruction for a short period of time. And then on step 4 is really removing from instruction with some recommendations for potentially other placements. This is a piece of the guidance that hasn't changed. So this is something we asked all of our staff and our families to do last year. And we're going to continue and ask them to do it again this year. This is that daily symptom screening. So before everybody comes to work every day, before our students come to school every day, we're asking that they be checked for symptoms. And really, the important part of this is anybody who is ill, we need them to stay home. So if you're not feeling well, we need you to stay home, because that is really how we're going to make sure that we're avoiding spread of not only COVID-19, but the flu, the colds, everything else that can impact learning and cause disruptions to other people's learning. So that daily screening is really an important element of our prevention process. Physical distancing is not like it was last year. This is an area where the guidance has changed quite a bit. And really what our health experts are saying is, as they've looked at the experience that schools have had throughout the country, throughout the world, and they look at how the virus has spread, and as we've learned more about the virus and how it spreads, that if you are implementing multiple mitigation measures, that schools can operate safely with limited or reduced physical distancing. Again, it's if you have other mitigation measures in place, especially those face coverings. If you don't have those in place, the safety of not having physical distance, it's not there, it's not safe to do. But if you have those other mitigation measures, it can be done safely. So this year, there are not hard limits. Last year, we kind of started at 6 feet of space inside the classroom, which really limited how many students we could fit onto a campus. When that was reduced down to 3 feet, we were able to fit just about everybody onto campuses. That allowed us to go back to that 4 days of instruction. This year, there's no hard number. There's not a 3 foot, there's not a 6 foot. What there is a ask that we maximize that spacing. So while we don't have that minimum, we're asking our staff, look at your spaces. And we want you to maximize the spacing of students inside that classroom, of your staff when you're having small staff group meetings, maximize that spacing inside that room. So use the space that you have, but don't exclude anybody. So we're not going to say, I'm going to arbitrarily decide I'm going to do 5 feet in my room. So then I have 4 kids who don't fit in my room anymore. We're not going to exclude anybody because we're trying to space out. We're going to space out to the maximum we can in the space we have. We're going to use larger spaces when we can, but we're not using a minimum space. One of the areas where physical distancing is going to become very important for us is during meal service. And that's because meal service really represents a really high-risk activity. This is one of the few times when we're going to be on campuses, we're going to be indoors, and we're going to have those face coverings off. Eating and drinking is one of the few times you're authorized to take that face covering off. So when we're having that meal service, maximizing that space to the greatest extent possible is going to be very key for us. So as we've talked with our site principals, as we've talked with some of our staff, and we've looked at how we might be able to do this, it's really turning into conversations about making sure that we have outdoor spaces for our students to go to on our school campuses when weather and other conditions permit. And then if we don't have those outdoor spaces, if they're not available for a specific day, whatever the case may be, we have some other alternative indoor spaces for them to go. That creates some concerns around supervision and other pieces that school sites are working through. But it really is about making sure that we maximize the spacing inside that MP room, but really giving some alternative spaces so we can go outside that MP room, that we don't have everybody there. Some school sites are getting creative and looking at how they can add an extra lunch period, add more time to their lunch period so they can stagger kids through a little on a little smaller groups. So folks are getting creative, but this is one of the areas where we're really paying attention to spacing and asking our school sites to get creative in how we can space kids out. All the food will be prepackaged again this year, so it will be easy for them to kind of pick up that actual food and go to other spaces and eat. And I'm going to take an opportunity to offer a little bit of a commercial. We're very excited that all of our students in the entire district in our entire community get to eat for free. So if you're under 18, you get breakfast, you get lunch for free. There's no application. You don't have to do anything other than show up and get your meal if you're a student at a school site. But if you're not a student at a school site, if you're in that independent study program, the homeschool program, or just any youth who don't go to our schools, but you're under age 18, we will still give you a meal at any of those 4 sites that are on the screen there, the times that are mentioned. There's a process for that. You do have to get a little validation form if you're picking up at those sites and you don't have kids with you. If you have the kids with you, you can pick up meals for them. If the kids aren't with you, you have a validation form that allows you to get meals for them every day. But we're very excited about being able to offer meal service to all of our youth under age 18. We do think that's going to increase usage of the meal program at some of our school sites. But again, that's why we're really anxious to have these conversations about how we maximize that spacing inside of our MP rooms and other areas on campus for meal service. So far what I've shared are all part of what I can kind of consider our base mitigation. These are things that we need to be doing all the time. We need to be looking at all the time. But I do want to talk about some of the things that are really in response to specific conditions in our community. But before we do that, I want to just highlight where we're at as a community and why we need to talk about some additional measures. So as we look at the 7-day case rate for Sacramento County, you'll see that we were doing really well. As we went through the summer, we continued to see that case rate fall. June was really good for us. And then July, like many other areas, we started to see that uptick. We're optimistically hopeful that we've seen a peak, kind of that last week of July. I try to be optimistic, but we will see where it really goes. The important part to note here is when we talk about case rates of 29.3, we haven't seen case rates of 29.3 since late January. So this is taking us back, not to bring back the tiers, but if we had the tiers, we would be deep, deep into the purple tier. The other local condition I wanted to highlight is hospitalizations and ICU usage in our community. And again, it looks very much like our case rate, where things were coming down, things were looking much better. And then recently, we see just this rapid uptick and spike in hospitalizations and the ICUs. And again, we haven't seen rates like this since early February, late January. So we're seeing those higher case rates and we're seeing serious cases. We're seeing people having to go to the hospital. We're seeing people being put in the ICU. So it is impacting that healthcare system, which is one of the things as a community we always want to watch for. So because of that, there are some pieces of recommendation from Sacramento County Public Health, as well as the state, that they say if you have higher levels of transmission in your community, you should really give some consideration to some other things. So one of those is about holding events and meetings. And as we've looked at this and we've looked at the guidance from those state and county agencies, for the time being, because of this higher case rate, because of our local conditions, we are moving to virtual events wherever we can. We're trying to limit those in-person events to only those things that are absolutely essential. The start of the school year is an important time to build relationships. So we're being thoughtful about knowing that relationships are sometimes a little bit stronger in person. How do we do that wisely if we are going to do them in person? Outdoors, implementing multiple measures, so increasing the amount of space between people, really encouraging the use of face coverings, even if we are outdoors, limiting the use of food and beverage so that if we do have masks on, we're not taking them off, going in smaller groups. So instead of doing one large event, we're doing small groups and repeating the event. So really trying to be thoughtful about if we do have to do an in-person event, is it essential for what we're trying to do right now? And if it's not, it either needs to be postponed or it needs to be virtual. In a similar fashion, that's kind of where we're at with our meetings right now. If it can be held virtually, that's what we're asking folks to do. We're asking our school sites for parent meetings right now to hold those virtually. If it needs to be in person for whatever reason, it can be if we implement the appropriate safety precautions. Again, those face coverings, allowing for spacing, minimizing the number of participants. And then for staff meetings, and this is one where we've really struggled because folks are, just like our students and our families, our staff are very excited to see each other after having not seen each other for quite a while. We are asking those to be moved outdoors if it involves the majority of school site staff, or breaking them into smaller groups, or doing them virtually. And we are limiting any staff meetings right now to being, if you do a small group, it needs to be just your department level at the high schools, secondary, or by grade level. One of our primary concerns there is to avoid having an outbreak where we impact the entire staff or a good portion of the staff. Because again, keeping in mind our priority is to make sure we avoid or limit any disruptions to learning, so that we're making that a priority right now. We're making all of these a priority right now, even though they're not necessarily things we want to do. And I would underscore that on this one. This is not one that we really wanted to do. As a matter of fact, we had, as we drafted our revisions to guidance in kind of over the summer, this guidance looked very different. It was much more about welcoming our volunteers and visitors back to campuses. But based on the recommendations of Sacramento County Public Health, and given where we are at as a community, we are at this time starting the school year with restrictions on the use of volunteers on our school campuses. There was some confusion last year about how this applied to parents and other folks dropping kids off on school campuses. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We want to make sure that the parents can get their kids to school safely, that they can get them started off on this school day well. So we are allowing parents to drop kids off. We are asking that they not congregate on the school site, that they not spend more than 15 minutes on the school site dropping the kid off or picking their student up. So we are putting some limitations there, but this is not meant to keep our parents off of our school campuses for pickup and drop off. We're really talking about limiting the number of people who are on campuses for more than 15 minutes, who are working in side buildings and side classrooms. So we're really limiting that type of activity based on where we are as a community and the conditions in our community. We're working with local health officials to say, what are some of those wise things we could do, perhaps to put in some additional safety measures that would make it safe to welcome our volunteers back? And so that we can do that as soon as possible, whether it be through additional safety measures or as the community case rates and conditions improve. I do want to highlight for folks, because I wear that safety hat, not only for COVID, but for other things, that sign in and sign out is always a vital piece, but is going to be especially important when we do welcome our volunteers back, because it is going to be a key tool for allowing us to do contact tracing when that does happen. And we want to be sure that if there is, unfortunately, a case on a school campus and we need to notify a volunteer who's been there, that we know they've been there, that we can contact them, that we can make sure that we get that notification done, and vice versa, that if they come down with a case, that we know we can figure out where they've been, and that we can make sure that we do what we need to do to help protect the health and safety of our students and our staff. So those are some of the prevention pieces that I wanted to talk about tonight. The other area I wanted to make sure we touched on was how we're going to respond if we do have a case or an exposure on one of our campuses. So returning after symptoms has changed a little bit. And this has been one that has continued to change throughout the pandemic as we've learned more about how the virus spreads. And we've went from 72 hours to 24 hours. And what I will highlight for you here is that this current guidance really puts us at a default of 10 days if you're symptomatic. So without having a negative COVID test or without having a doctor's note saying this is because of an underlying condition of some sort, asthma, allergies, whatever the case may be, or no, I've looked at this person and this is a cold, this is the flu, and I've made that medical diagnosis. Without those two things, with the negative test or that doctor's note, then you are on a 10-day out from school if you are symptomatic. Modified quarantine. Modified quarantine is a new version of quarantine for our students. It does not apply to our staff, and it only applies to our students who are exposed to somebody who has COVID in a school setting. So if Tommy it has a COVID case and that gets reported, and we identify Trent as somebody who's been a close contact exposure, but I'm unvaccinated, then I may qualify for this modified quarantine if I'm asymptomatic, if I don't develop any of those symptoms. If we were both wearing our masks, if both Tommy and Trent were wearing those masks, and I agree to have COVID-19 testing done twice a week. So that is a new piece of the state guidance, as well as in the county guidance, that allows us to then let Trent come back to instruction during what would otherwise be a minimum of a 10-day, well, would be a 10-day quarantine period by default. During that time, I can come back to instruction, but I cannot come back to extracurricular activities or before and after school programs. So it is really meant as a way to allow students to continue to engage in that core primary instruction and to continue to monitor for symptoms and then be extra sure and extra safe by having that COVID-19 testing to back it up. Went too far. There we go. So testing, as you can see, becomes more important for us, not only because of the modified quarantine, but also because if somebody has that runny nose and is symptomatic with a cough, whatever the case may be, whatever those symptoms may be, and those symptoms go away before those 10 days are up, we want to try and get them back to instruction as soon as possible. So the district is going to continue to offer free COVID-19 testing for all of our students and staff. Right now, we have centralized sites that offer that service twice a week. We'll continue to do that. The district office is a site every week. And then on 1 week, we will do, right now we're doing West End. And then the other week we do East End. So if you want to get into that every other week cadence, we are hoping that we have somewhere nearby. We are also looking to be able to expand the number of those sites. The other thing I will share with you is we are working to expand testing capacity to be able to have testing directly on hopefully each and every one of our school sites, so that we will have staff on those school sites who can use those rapid antigen tests, so that if Trent or Tommy are trying to come back and they need to be tested because they were symptomatic or because they may qualify for that modified quarantine, that rather than having to go to one of the district sites for testing or to their healthcare provider or to one of the county clinics, they'll actually be able to get that directly on their school campus through our partnership with the state for the testing program that we have in place. So then the kind of final area I wanted to touch on tonight is school and program closures. So this works a little bit differently than it did last year. There's no automatic closure of an entire class or an entire stabilized group of students. We are now moving to a model where we're really looking for who are those close contact exposures. And that makes that contact tracing process even more important. So last year we started at a process where we had a case in a classroom, the classroom was shut down. This year we're really looking at who are those people who were around, who are those people who were within 6 feet of the person who's positive, or a cumulative 15 minutes or more in a single 24-hour period. Those are close contact exposures. Those are the folks who are going to be going through quarantine if they qualify for quarantine. But we will not necessarily quarantine the entire class automatically. Depending on how the class is structured, how the class operates, it may be that we have to quarantine the entire class. If we can't determine who the close contact exposures were, then we're going to err on the side of caution and probably expand that quarantine to just make sure that everybody who might have been exposed does quarantine. But by default, it is no longer a default to go to that entire class. And then my final point here is that school closure is really that last resort. And the guidance from last year did have some metrics and some points that said if you had so many cases, so many outbreaks, you were an automatic closure. That language is now removed from the guidance, and it really is a conversation with your local health officer, because it really is a very nuanced conversation when you look at what is the circumstances on that individual school site, and then also expand that conversation to what are the circumstances in that school site's community. So you look at the case rates, you look at what's happening at nearby schools, you look at what's happening in nearby parts of the community. So it's not an automatic number we're looking for. It's really looking for that collaborative partnership with our health official to say, this is something we might need to do as an absolute last resort. And it is on an individual school basis. We do not anticipate a system-wide shutdown unless things go terribly, terribly south, which I remain optimistically hopeful we will not see. And my final note I will leave you with tonight is just that we do expect additional guidance to be forthcoming. So as we've continued to receive guidance and see lots of changes, we know that that will continue to be the case. We did receive some additional guidance, which is not necessarily reflected in tonight's presentation, just on Sunday night from our local county public health. So we are busily going through that right now and having conversations with our stakeholder groups on what that might look like and how that might impact some of our conversation. But the areas where we do expect to have some additional language relatively soon around field trips, band choir drama, and athletics. And with that, I will turn it over to the board for any questions or discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for the presentation. I'm just going to take a moment to verify that we don't have any written comments on this item.
We do have one written comment, no in-person commenters.
Okay, please proceed to read them, Ms. Rai. Thank you.
This comment is from Jenny Manigabe, who writes, as a registered nurse in Sacramento, I think it is essential to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, keep our kids safe and in the classroom. After attending back to school night for my kindergartner, I have serious health and safety concerns for students. At this time, at Gold River Discovery Center, kids will not be following protocol from spring 2021. Everything went well in the spring and all protocol was safe. I do not think it is safe for kids to interact with students in all classrooms. The kids need separate areas for each class to play and eat. Students should not be eating indoors without masks unless it is raining. Masks should be mandatory all day, no exceptions. The kids wore them in the spring and there was no issue. These are serious concerns that need to be addressed immediately. And that is our only comment.
Thank you. At this time, I will turn it to my colleagues for board member questions and comments. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. It was very thorough. And I just have a quick question comment on slide 5 on the face coverings. And you're on the required indoors. You said it is the rule, okay? That means that our students and staff and everybody at the school, while they're indoors, they are mandated, or we are mandated to have face coverings. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is in the California Department of Public Health guidance, as well as the local Sacramento County Public Health order that was issued July 30th because of our local health conditions.
Thank you.
Ms. Creason.
Thanks for that. I know that hearing it, yeah, I'm trying to not just go like this. Although we've come so far to see us where we're at, it's hard. But we're going to get through this just like we got through the last year and a half. So a couple of questions, and totally understand if you can't answer this, but I'm just wondering, because some things have already been canceled, in-person things. And so I'm wondering, is there a number, like how big is too big in the way of gatherings?
So that has been a very common question of late. And really, again, for those staff meetings, we've said a majority of staff because the interest there is to make sure we don't have anything that hits a majority of staff. When we talk about our public events, it does become a little more nuanced. And what I would say is, if we think creatively, there's generally not an event we can't do outdoors or in a virtual manner. So when we're talking about a virtual manner, obviously we can have lots of participation if we have the right tools in place. When we talk about our outdoor events, we need to look at some logistics and spacing pieces, but generally then we can have, as long as we are maximizing our spacing, we're really encouraging the use of face coverings to the greatest extent possible, and having some of those mitigation pieces in place, we can have some school-sized groups. It is really a good consideration to break those into smaller groups whenever we can, though. So rather than doing the entire school at one time, do the 9th graders, then the 10th graders.
Got it. Going to slide 5 too. And I think my colleague, Mr. Hernandez, kind of hit on it, but we talked a lot about kids and the expectations on kids. But my assumption is these are the same rules for adults too. And I hate to go there, but I'm going to go there because it came up a whole lot last year from staff members that were concerned about some team members that maybe were not following some of the rules. And so I know there are questions out there from staff on, well, what do we do if our colleagues are also not following the rules? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the face covering policy absolutely does apply to all of our adults, whether they be staff, guests on campus. And again, it is indoors, face coverings are on. And if staff have a concern about a fellow staff member, certainly we would encourage them to address that with that staff member if they're comfortable, with the site administrator, if not. And if they're not comfortable having either of those conversations, they can contact HR, and HR will have those conversations and make sure that we have compliance with the face covering policy.
Thank you for that. I have gotten a lot of questions as Delta does its thing if we are talking about campus closures. And I've assured everyone that I have talked to is that the board has not discussed that. So that's more of a statement than a question. I wanted to bring it up during this item. And I understand it's a reasonable concern. People are freaking out, things are going backwards, but I just want to say on the record, it's not a conversation we've had as a board at all. Education will continue. I love the first or maybe second slide that that's the priority, to not disrupt learning. So can you talk a little bit, and you already did, but is there anything else you can share about how education will continue should a kid have to stay home for quarantine, they're sick? What does that look like? How are they supported?
So we are in some conversations right now on some of the finer details of that. What I will say is our interest is to continue to support students who are in quarantine or do have to be out even for an extended period beyond that for whatever that reason may be, whether it be through a short-term independent study arrangement or a longer-term arrangement. So we are having those conversations with our teacher partners right now. So we do have plans that will be there to support our students and continue their learning.
Thank you for that. And I think the big takeaway I think people might want to hear, it's not the same thing as your kid got sick 3 years ago and that you just come back and try to catch up and hopefully it all works out, that there's going to be more support and engagement in that way in this process. Okay, I'm almost done. Testing. So I'm wondering, how are we notifying families, students, everybody that we do have these testing sites so that they're aware that it's open to them and available if or when they need and want it?
We will be doing some additional outreach. We've had some social media in the past. We'll continue to do those, but then really I'm hopeful that we'll have some more definition around our ability to test at school sites very soon. That will really be a big push for us to get out to families.
Okay, and if
as soon as we can.
Doesn't happen soon, hopefully it just doesn't. I'm saying this for no reason, but if we're not going to be offering at school sites soon, is there a way to ensure that school sites are pushing out maybe in their back to school materials or whatever, so that they know of the two sites that are the thing we do twice a week or every other week, twice a week?
Yes, I will make the commitment that if we have not made enough progress to make some announcements by the end of next week, we will certainly do some greater pushes along the routes of what we have currently available to all of our families.
Thank you for all your work on this. That's it.
Dr. McKibben.
First of all, the lunch for everybody makes a great deal of sense in this time, and congratulations on all the work that you've done on that. In the last year, we had some of our data that were broken down to the school district and even to schools and this sort of thing. The data you presented today, I assume, is countywide data, and that's do we anticipate that we'll be breaking the data down school by school and so forth like we did last year?
We will. Our district dashboard is still up and running. Given it's the summer, we are starting to see more activity on that dashboard, unfortunately. But given that it's the summer, we did see, obviously a big drop in activity. So I didn't necessarily want to present numbers that didn't show a whole lot. But yes, that dashboard is still there. So we will have site level as well as district level information available and publicly available.
And in terms of having been COVID tested a number of times in the last 2 weeks since I was out of the country, I can attest to the skill of the person doing the test makes a difference and so forth. What kind of training will be given to the people who are doing the contact testing?
So we partner with the state of California for our testing program, and we started with the PCR testing program, and we've actually moved over primarily. We still do the PCRs as well, but we've primarily moved over to the antigen rapid tests. And as part of that shift in program, it actually has a very robust training element that requires not only the PowerPoint slides and going through the book learning, but then you also have to do a live interaction with a trainer. You have the sample tests in front of you where you have to demonstrate that you're holding the bottle up and down correctly, so you're getting equal size drops into the test itself, that you're doing the timing correctly. So I would say that it does provide a high level of confidence in how people would be trained, and they have to go through that process, get signed off in that process before they're actually allowed to give tests.
And my last question was that last year, there were two different quarantining meant at one level meant sending the kids home. But as I recall, at one point, there was a quarantining that was within the school. That seems to have been eliminated. Is that correct?
So within the school, what we had and we still have is if there's a student who presents with symptoms during the school day, our schools are asked to have a space where they can be isolated until their parent or guardian can come and pick them up and remove them from the school environment. So we still have those spaces for students who are symptomatic during the day. I think that may be what you're thinking of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for the presentation. I just have a couple of clarifying questions, and it starts on slide 10 around kind of events and meetings. Can you clarify that some of these kind of discussions around requirements for holding things virtually, et cetera, that this applies to rallies and clubs or not?
It does apply to rallies and clubs, specifically rallies is part of the county guidance of things to avoid. So again, when we're talking about those events that we know we want to avoid, those are things that are not necessarily directly tied to instruction, that are not necessarily essential or that we can delay and have perhaps when conditions improve. So a rally would fit into that type of category.
And then on slide 11, I know you spoke about kind of visitors and volunteers and a lot around pickup and drop off, et cetera. But at a number of our schools, thankfully, a lot of our parents volunteer directly in the classroom. For the time being, if I'm reading this correctly, that won't be allowed. Is that correct?
That is correct. The in-classroom volunteerism would be paused at this time while we have that heightened community transmission.
Thank you for clarifying. And then I think the rest is just, I'm just going to make a comment, and which is that I cannot accurately describe or articulate my frustration and anger with where we're at right now. Not we as a district, but we as a county and we as a state. I don't think when we finally kind of closed the door on the school year last spring, that this is what we envisioned as our grand reopening in the fall. I mean, a lot of what our kiddos were looking forward to are the rallies and the clubs and all that. And I'm just frankly really pissed off that they have to have another modified school year because we have decided to be remarkably selfish as adults. I think often, well, instead of just kind of sitting here, what more can we do? The thing that comes to mind, and I will likely bring up, just as folks know, so folks know, is kind of a future agenda items. You know, we are one of the largest employers in the area. And it seems to me that a big step in keeping our students safe would be requiring that our employees be vaccinated. And even requiring vaccine proof for participation, et cetera. I am tired of just figuring out ways to put up with people being selfish in ways that harm our children. This is not how I wanted to start this school year. However, that being said, a lot of what we've gone through here, it's just a lot of work, and which I'm thankful that we're going to endeavor on. I mean, the testing piece, reinforcing the face coverings piece. Like, I just want to say a shout out to, I mean, I really sincerely hoped that we weren't starting the school year with our school site staff having to be referees with parents and kids on whether or not they wanted to wear masks. Like, we did not have to be here. And that is the most frustrating part of all of this. So I'm not sure yelling and being frustrated is particularly productive. I just felt like I needed to say that because it's just, this is now the third year that our children have to deal with a modified school year in some way. I am really, really excited about the meal service piece. I will say that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's some silver linings. That would be one of them. But when I look at these chart in particular, like when we're looking at the summer, like we have seen this story before. We've seen this horror film before. I appreciate your optimism. I have no belief that December is going to be any better than it was last year. And it enrages me. That's the end of my soapbox. I'm going to stop there for now and see if anybody has anything else to add at this time, or Superintendent Kern, if you had anything to add. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for all of your work on this.
Thank you.
We're at item I3, notice of intent to convey easement at Barrett Middle School. Mr. Camarda.
Well, good evening, President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Tonight's facilities item is an action item. It is the intent to convey an easement at John Barrett Middle School as a result of the construction project that's going on out there. I have Director Nicholas Arps here to answer any questions since it is a direct relation to that project. But the superintendent is recommending that the board adopt resolution number 3067, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at John Barrett Middle School to the Carmichael Water District and to call a public hearing that will be held on September 14th. We'll bring this item back September 14th, 2021 and at that board meeting. So any questions that the board might have, I might be able to answer, but I also have, again, Director Arps here to answer any questions that the board may have. So
Thank you, Mr. Camarda. We do have speaker cards on this item. We have one, Lori Corder. Ms. Corder, you're welcome to give your 2-minute public comment on this item at this time.
Again, let me address the fact that there was no community involvement in this particular project. It started April 19th. Nobody was notified until after COVID hit. Then they started with the Zoom meetings, and then they did not allow participation in the Zoom meetings also. Also, this is a community. Property taxes are paid to support you guys, and state and federal votes are done to support you guys. You guys have had the largest public construction projects going on in the billions and ranges during this COVID time, pushing through things. I believe that's called redlining, a discrimination of the community and the community involvement. There was on the December meeting, there was AECom come on. I believe they have been on your payroll before also, if they aren't currently on your payroll. And they have been going over the 7-year past traffic calming results, which they misconstrued. And right now they're doing this easement. Nobody's been notified. This is the back line of my property. They've suggested that they're going to put a tree line back there, and which means that that's one more thing that you guys do not maintain. You haven't maintained the tree line that's in the front of the school. The trees are dead. They were put in by SMUD long time ago. You have 2 diseased trees, the Sequoia sempervirens out in the front, you have yet to address. It's just ongoing. And here you have this easement that's going to go in right next to my property that backs up my property that at one time you put in a asphalt driveway and didn't even properly cite it, and I flooded out. And that's on one of the recordings. And there's been parking lot issues back there, and nobody has addressed this at all. I'm disgusted with you. And again,
That's the balance of your 2 minutes. I see no further written comments at this time. So we will now turn it over to the board. Do any board members have questions or comments at this time? Seeing none. This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3067, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at Barrett Middle School to the Carmichael Water District and to call a public hearing on September 14th?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. McKibben and seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was unanimous. We are at item I4, notice of intent to convey easement at Del Campo High School. Mr. Camarda.
Thank you, President Villesquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. Again, tonight's facilities item is an action item. It is the intent to convey an easement at Del Campo High School as a result of the high school project that's going on there at the science wing. The superintendent is recommending that the board adopt resolution number 3069, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at Del Campo High School, again, to Carmichael Water District, and to call a public hearing that will be held on September 14th, 2021. Again, I'm here with Director Nicholas Arps, and we can answer any questions that the board might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda and Mr. Arps. We do not have any speaker cards or written comments on this item. This is an action item. Or nope, sorry. Do any board members have questions or comments on this item? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3069, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at Del Campo High School to the Carmichael Water District and to call a public hearing on September 14th? Been moved by Ms. Creason. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous.
Thank you, board members.
We are at item I5, Board Bylaw 9270, Conflict of Interest. Ms. Simlick.
Thank you and good evening, President Vasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. Before you tonight is changes to Board Bylaw 9270. I'm going to put my glasses on. Conflict of interest, and it's kind of confusing this time because CSBA, whose board policies we follow pretty closely, has restructured their system. And so part of that restructuring has it that they no longer have board policy 2300 conflict of interest, which we had. We had three different, we had the two policies, board bylaw and board policy plus the exhibit. What we're recommending now is that we follow CSBA guidelines and that we put all of the information into board bylaw 9270 along with the exhibit 9270 and then sunset board policy 2300. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Ms. Simlick, and thank you for the explanation. I do not at this time see any speaker cards or written comments on this item. Do any board members have questions or comments? Dr. McKibben.
I tried to read through this. I've tried to see if there was anything different than what is currently reportable, and there were a couple of things that talked about remote interests, and I don't remember anything about remote interests before on page 2. And on page 3, it's earlier it says there's, if it's nothing's reportable, and then later it says, particularly when giving speeches and things like that, that's reportable, even though they were talking about the day before and the day after and so forth. So what's different?
Well, there's really, we've gone through these periodically because we have to report to Sacramento County when we make changes to positions and things like that. So we do have to send this to Sacramento County to review also. So there are little bits and pieces, and honestly, I don't know all of the bits and pieces at this point. I appreciate you pointing out the couple. I think that the one thing is that the one where you talk about the before and after, I don't really think that was different before, but it wasn't called out.
Okay.
So now it's being called out more specifically.
And I did not, can you help me with what is a remote interest?
That's where you failure to disclose a remote interest may be subject to a fine pursuant to the government code section. So they talk about it in the government code. If it goes down below that section, that's on the bottom of page 2.
So it's just below and
right, just
because I had-
below. And I'm sorry, I don't have the government code section in front of me. I can
Okay,
provide that
but
to you.
But it's
So-
there and I just.
Right, and
when
I
it
will.
said remote interest, I said, I don't remember that one, but I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but that, again, I think that's being called out, that it wasn't specifically called out before.
Okay.
But I'll get that information to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the dais? Okay. Seeing none, this was a discussion item. It's intended to be returned for action on August 24th. Is it okay with my colleagues if this is a consent item? That was unanimous. So it will be on our consent calendar for the next meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
You're with us for I6, Ms. Simlick, Williams complaint report. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. And good evening again. As you're well aware, Education Code 35-186 requires that district staff report to the board at a regularly scheduled meeting concerning any William type complaints and the resolution of those complaints. I'm pleased to report that for the last quarter from April through June 2021, there were no Williams complaints filed with the district.
Thank you, Ms. Simlick. We do not have any speaker cards or written cards on this item. Do any board members have questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you for the report. We are at item I7, declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Mr. Orapallo.
Good evening, President Vasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. Superintendent is recommending that the board adopt a declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 21-21 school year. This is an action item, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Orapallo. We do not have any comments or written comments on this item. Do any board members have questions or comments at this time?
I'm sorry.
Dr. McKibben.
Mr. Orapallo, how do these numbers compare to the previous years? We had a total of 48. Is that fairly?
It's going to be higher this year, Dr. McKibben, simply because we're going to be hiring many more teachers than we typically do. Because of our retirement incentive and the additional monies that we've had, we're hiring many more people. So this is an estimate. This is just gives us the authority to do so, that we may run into these particular issues. However, we've made an effort not to use any of them. We always come under the number which we give you here. And that's when we come back and we talk about credential issues in the month of October with more specifics.
Thank you very much.
Want to acknowledge any additional comments or questions at this time? Seeing none. This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt the declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2021-2022 school year? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. Item I8, exemption to the separation from service requirement. Mr. Orapallo.
And I'm going to be requesting that we pull this item at this time. For the 21-22 school year, we're not going to be able to access this simply because of our retirement incentive does not allow us to access this particular resolution.
Okay, that item's pulled. We are at item I9, tentative agreement with the California School Employees Association. Mr. Thigpen.
Good evening, President Vasquez, board member, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. I'm here tonight to present the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the tentative agreement with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 127, and the San Juan Unified School District. One note, this agreement is scheduled for ratification, I believe, later this week to the voting CSEA members. I do need to state for the minutes that the one-time off-schedule payment will not increase employees' base compensation. This is an action item, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thigpen. We do not have, any speaker cards or written comments on this item. Do any board members have questions or comments? Want to make sure there's no other public comments on this item. Thank you very much for bringing this forward, and to our team and our partners for their hard work in reaching this agreement. I want to acknowledge some of our CSEA members here. Thank you for being here this evening. Seeing no questions or comments, this was a discussion item at the last meeting, and tonight is an action item. So is there a motion to adopt the tentative agreement between the California School Employees Association, Chapter 127, and the San Juan Unified School District? The move by Ms. Creason. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. We're at item J, board reports. I know it's been a real quiet summer, but see if anyone has any board reports to offer at this time. Ms. Creason.
Just want to state it for anyone that may be listening in. I'm getting a lot of calls of concern that our vote to go by district also changes school boundaries. And so I just want to say it again to anyone that may be listening, that is not the case. And also, I'm just going to throw it out there that maybe we need to communicate that out somehow. I don't know what that looks like, and probably not the time to talk about that, but it's coming up quite a bit.
Dr. McKibben.
Wanted to mention that I last week went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting of Citrus Heights. There were actually 74 people there, and which was the largest they've ever had, and so forth. And it was a good time, even though we got a few questions related to our trustee areas. But want to thank them for giving us a time to talk about some of the things that we're doing and so forth. Also wanted to recognize the Ali Aguirre from Casa Roble High School. Was part of the Olympic softball team and that got a silver medal and so forth. I won't talk about Annie Drews from Elkhart, Indiana, where I started teaching high school a couple of years ago and so forth. Also, she went to some unknown Midwestern university and so forth. But but again, congratulations to Ali and what she brought as a 2013 graduate of our district in Casa Roble High School.
Fantastic. I also wanted to acknowledge the victories of Miss Aguilar. I did not expect to get as roped into the Olympics this year as I did, but it was just so nice to have a shared experience that was a positive one. And of course, to have one of our own up on the podium was fantastic. I'll just kind of generally acknowledge that over the last week or so, I've been on a little bit of a road show, I'll call it, of welcoming our team back for the new year. Everything from welcoming on behalf of the board, our administrators for the year and our district leadership. I don't know if it's official, but possibly like a record smooth start attendance of over 200 new teachers. Anybody by chance have numbers on that official number? Oh, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, it was a large auditorium, a brand new teachers that we got to welcome to the San Juan family on behalf of our district's leadership and governance team. And I know Ms. Bassinelli and the team also welcomed significantly large, I'm not prepared to call it a record, but possibly close number of instructional assistants and bilingual instructional assistants earlier this week as well. It's crazy. Over 200, just so that people, in case people can't hear Ms. Bassinelli. Lots of new fantastic additions to the San Juan team. And then, of course, we spent the summer, and for anybody who's tuning in that doesn't know this, we moved to by district elections, but I'm not going to go over that because if you're tuning in, you probably knew that already. I'm going to go ahead and stop my board report there. We're at item K, future agenda items. Do any board members wish to add any items to the future agenda? I do have one item for consideration, and that is, as I explained a little bit earlier, but also just will emphasize a little bit more, this time last year, it was not easy, but I remember investing a lot of hope in, well, at some point, the way out of this will be a vaccine, and only to now be living the story that we are now. It's true. It's really difficult and really heartbreaking. And so I came prepared to request a consideration of a vaccination requirement for our employees. I want to qualify that to say for consideration at the next meeting if the state doesn't take any action prior to that. I still want to make that request for a future agenda item and see if there's any objections to that. Okay, seeing none. Again, only if the state does not take action on that prior to our 24th meeting on the 24th. With that, we are at item L, visitor comments. We do have speaker comments. We have one visitor comment. Ms. Corder, please join us, and you have an additional 2 minutes, and you can please begin when you're ready. I'll also just issue one more reminder. The board's not allowed to comment on items at this point that are not on the agenda, so we're not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to individual comments. And your 2 minutes will begin when you're ready.
Okay, I'd like to look at G 9 and 10. And putting in for time to speak, it was put in for the earlier time. I'd like you to reconsider G 9 and 10. And that's in the landmark decision of payments and moving forward until you correct the facility problems and the transportation problems and the parking and offloading that is going to be impacted by the community. And that is what I'm asking. I believe that there has been little to nil consideration for the community and that construction project. And then the second thing is I'm wondering how Barrett is going to function with their learning requirements with all the construction that's going on. And are those employees for the construction crew, are they going to have to be vaccinated? And then are you going to have room for the 850 students that were normally based there to begin school again? And then my other concern is again about the CEQA and the facilities and the redlining of this business department as you're running a business, and the discrimination against the community, because it is the community that funds these organizations, that funds the taxes, the federal and the state, that is funding these facility improvements. Not that I am against the improvements, but there's a lot of considerations that were overlooked. The community did not know that this was going to go on. And there's a big transportation problem around there. And then there's people's property values that you have not considered. In fact, a couple of employees from Barrett were walking behind me and they said, if she doesn't like it, she can move. I shouldn't have to move. I moved next to a school, but I also moved next to a neighbor. And you're supposed to have consideration for me like I have consideration for you. My father-in-law worked for the district his whole employment. I've done a lot of volunteer work for you guys too.
Corder. Ms. Corder, that's the remainder of your 2 minutes. At this time, we do not need to return to closed session, and so we are adjourned.